They simply want the pain to end, and that's the struggle of the journey has just become too much for them. And that's the underlying theme I get from many of the emails that I receive from people every week. Probably I get about half a dozen emails related to that type of thing every week, and I respond to every one of them. But they have taken kind of a vulnerable step of reaching out to a stranger, me, and who wrote something about themselves that connected with people, and they feel like they've found someone who understands. And so they'll email me and they'll use various phrases to describe the situation and the prayer life. And some relate to wishing to die in their sleep, that they would just simply not wake up. They don't want to take their own life. Instead, they just wish their departure did seem quite natural. And I wonder if you've ever been in this dark and sad place. It's a place of suffering. It's the heart only knowing pain, and you sleep, but you wake to light in the morning. The new day shines through the window, and you think, "Oh, here's another day," and you ask why. And this is where we find our fellow human struggler, our friend Job, the one who knows endurance. And Job, in his prayer of pain, speaks out his heart, and he says, "Why is light given to one in misery?" In other words, why is there another new day when I'm just, don't want to be here, when it's dark? And he carries on, and life to the bitter in soul. And the message puts it this way: why does God bother giving light to the miserable? Why bother keeping people alive? And God doesn't provide an answer to satisfy it. We want easy to understand answers, don't we? Simple solutions to the mysteries we struggle with. And when we have the answer, we can pull it out every time as a kind of salve to relieve the pain. And if we do that, well, we no longer need a relationship with God, because that demands us to endure and trust in those times when the road is uphill and hard. And as we read through Job, we will soon find that he has some so-called friends and advisors that are full of answers to his misery. And they give out the answers and they don't help. And none of them are correct. None of them say, I don't know, I'm just going to sit here with you. I'm going to endure this with you. And we are fortunate to be able to, we are fortunate, really fortunate to be able to skip ahead in the story to see right at the end of the story that Job comes out of this dark place and finds newness in everything. So what do is we look for the principles and the methods and the keys that help Job transition out of the dark hole and into that place of light, so we can do it too, and we can have the suffering to be very, very brief. But actually we don't know how long Job was in that place. The book of Job is like 40 chapters. Whether that's a week or 2 weeks, a year, I don't know. We don't know. But he was one that endured. What's it like to endure? Look, I know someone recently who went through cancer treatment, and they endured a battle for their life. Their body had a cancerous growth in them, and war commenced. First, chemicals were put into the body that attacked the cells and stripped the body of immunity. They were vulnerable to any infection that happened to float past them. And then radio waves were targeted at the growth. And more treatment upon that. And as a fellow traveller, I could do nothing for them. Uh, they were on their own as such. Sure, they had lots of medical help and support and family and friends, but I couldn't be in their body and carry any of their struggles. I couldn't even visit them for the risk of me passing on a common illness like the cold, because they had no immunity. I could be there with them in the struggle though. I didn't want them to be alone. I wanted them to know that they were held in community with me and others. But it was their battle for endurance. For many, it is a daily struggle with darkness and the new mornings coming through the window that Job wrestled with. Why? When we complain, we can complain, groan, moan, demand, and plead. And God is big enough to handle it all. Richard Rohr says that he who carries all understands all. He who has suffered all has a universal compassion. He who has been afflicted and lived is the bearer of hope. The wounded one is always the gift giver. God knows the darkness of a day when a cross is waiting for a sun. Think about that. God knows the darkness of a day when a cross is waiting for a son. God knows the parental ache of longing for a lost and wayward child to return home. Job throws up questions in his rawness, and God still wants his heart. Isn't that good? God still wants us even when we moan and groan and moan about everything. Only then, when we get to that place, I think, can little windows of wisdom open up. Perhaps of knowing some assurance that is vastly bigger than our moans and groans. Little things that we can do differently. New perspectives, a new awareness of God's presence, and I suppose turning the pages there, really to try and bring some of those perspectives and ideas to help. To endure brings us to an awareness in the darkest of valleys that we are not alone in our pain. We have a good shepherd walking with us through the thunderstorms. And endurance builds trust. That is what those who write to me in pain want. They really do. They want to know that someone is there, someone that will endure this with them. And the writer of Hebrews says this: let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. Here's some quotes. Every hard thing we endure can put us in touch with our desire for God. And every trial can strengthen that desire until it becomes the consuming passion of our life. Larry Crabb. I do not believe that sheer suffering teaches. If suffering alone taught, all the world would be wise, since everyone suffers. To suffering must be added mourning, understanding, patience, love, openness, and the willingness to remain vulnerable. All these and other factors combined, if the circumstances are right, can teach and lead to rebirth. Anne Morrow Lindbergh. Jesus on the cross and Mary standing near him are powerful witnesses to transformative spirituality. They return no hostility, pain, accusations, or malice directed at them. They hold the suffering until it becomes resurrection. That's the core mystery of Christianity. It often takes our whole lives to begin to comprehend this. Unfortunately, our natural instinct is trying to fix pain, to control it, or even foolishly attempting to understand it. The ego insists on understanding. That's why Jesus praises a certain quality even more than love, and he calls it faith. It's the ability to stand in liminal space, to stand on the threshold, to hold contraries until we are moved by grace to a much deeper level and a much larger frame. Our private pain does not take the center stage, but is a mystery shared with every act of bloodshed and every tear wept since the beginning of time. Our pain is not just our own. The normal mind can't deal with that. That's why mature religion always teaches some form of contemplation, to break our addiction to this egoic, disconnected thinking. Richard Rohr. If no meaning can be given to human suffering, if our wounds are not capable of becoming sacred wounds, the human project is surely doomed to a blaming wall of all against all. The future would then be full of scapegoats and victims. Richard Rohr. We are saved by those whom we go to save, and both of us are then saved in spite of ourselves. There is a mysterious third who is doing the saving. Suffering for and with others, with the other, seems to be the only way we know that our lives are not about us. Richard Rohr. Questions for you to think about. What have you learned from times of endurance? What have you learned? Number 2, walking with someone who is enduring pain is a sacred call. What are the qualities of a friend who does this? Number 3, who needs to know your quiet presence at this moment in their endurance battle? When I wrote this, I published it out and I got a huge response of emails just thanking me for this particular post. It seemed to resonate with a lot of people who are struggling and needing to endure, just to know that someone got it. Hey, if that's you, send me an email. It's barry@turningthepage.co.nz. And thank you for watching or listening. And I hope that you can find the presence of God in your place of endurance. And also just a big call out, if any of you would like to help fund the Turning the Page venture, it's as little as $1 a week, $1 a month, US dollar a month. And you can find out how to do that by coming over to turningthepage.co.nz/give. Okay, until next week, may you know the Lord who suffers and endures with you. Okay, bye.